In 2017, when Hurricane Harvey struck the southern coast of Texas, thousands of people lost their homes, and everything they had. Among them was a woman named Sarah Johnson. She lived in a small town near Houston with her two children. She was an ordinary American mother who worked as a nurse at a local clinic. Her life was simple but peaceful until that week when the storm came and changed everything. The rain started pouring without mercy, and the wind screamed like a living creature. The water level began to rise faster than anyone expected. By midnight, her street had turned into a river. She held her children close and waited for rescue, but help did not come. That night, the power went out, and the darkness swallowed her house. The sound of water rushing through the doors became louder. She climbed to the attic with her kids, trying to stay above the flood. She could hear neighbors screaming and dogs barking in panic. Hours passed, and the water kept rising. She broke a small hole in the roof with a hammer she found and pulled her children out onto the roof. The night was cold, and the sky flashed with lightning every few seconds. In the distance, she saw houses collapsing and cars floating away. It felt like the end of the world. By morning, the storm had passed, but the water remained everywhere. They were rescued by a boat sent by the National Guard. She and her children were taken to a shelter in Houston where hundreds of families sat on the floor wrapped in blankets. Everything she had built, her home, her photos, her savings, her car, it was all gone. She felt broken. She felt lost for days. She cried silently at night while her children slept beside her. She tried to stay strong for them, but inside, she was drowning just like her town had. But one morning, she looked around the shelter and saw elderly people sitting without medication. She saw mothers with babies who had no formula. She saw volunteers struggling to manage the chaos, and something changed inside her. She realized she could not control what had happened to her, but she could control what she did next. She stood up and began to help others. At first, she used her nursing skills to check blood pressure and provide first aid. She comforted people who were in shock. She talked to them and listened. She stayed up all night helping strangers. Soon, the shelter manager noticed her and asked her to help organize medical supplies. She agreed and worked nonstop. She did not think of her house anymore. She thought of everyone around her. After a few days, local reporters came to film stories from the shelter, and they saw Sarah helping tirelessly. People started recognizing her as the woman who never stopped working even when she had lost everything. Weeks later, when the floodwaters receded, Sarah returned to her town. It was unrecognizable, streets covered in mud, houses destroyed, cars upside down in ditches. But she was not the same woman anymore. She gathered neighbors and said, "We can rebuild together." She started a small volunteer group that cooked meals and delivered them to families who had nowhere to go. She contacted churches, schools, and local businesses asking for donations. She used her experience as a nurse to organize mobile medical camps in areas that were still without power. Soon, the group grew from 10 people to more than 100, and local news called her the heartbeat of hope. Months passed, and Sarah became the voice of her community. She met with city officials and demanded better disaster preparedness plans. She spoke on local TV about the need to support single mothers who lost their homes. She encouraged young people to volunteer and learn first aid. She even started free training sessions teaching families how to stay safe during floods. Her leadership inspired others across Texas. She was invited to Washington to share her story about resilience and community power. She spoke not like a politician, but like a mother who knew pain and courage. 2 years later, her town had rebuilt most of its homes. The people still remembered the storm, but they also remembered how Sarah had stood in the middle of ruin and brought hope. She opened a small community center called Rise Again, where she helped families get counseling, job support, and emergency aid. She never took money for herself. She said, "I already have everything I need: my children, my people, my purpose." Today, Sarah Johnson is known across the region as a local hero, but she never calls herself that. When asked how she found the strength, she says, "I just did what anyone should do. When the water rises, you do not let others drown, you lift them up." She continues to live in the same area, still helping during new storms, still teaching others how to prepare, still reminding everyone that true leadership is born from compassion and pain. Her story is a reminder that bravery does not always look like fighting wars. Sometimes it looks like a woman standing in the flood holding her children and refusing to give up. Sometimes it looks like helping strangers when you have nothing left. Sometimes it means turning loss into light and pain into power. Her journey from victim to leader shows the unbreakable spirit of human resilience in the face of nature's fury, and it tells us that even when everything is washed away, hope can still rise again.